This this BAIO movement is not just us coming together trying to put up a facade to black people that we want to go back to Africa and that we're down with the conscious movement. This is a group of brothers and sisters who are genuinely interested in your future and your family's quality of life. And I think I need to say that again. This is a group of men and women who are genuinely interested in your family and your family's quality of life. And so, therefore, revolution. Because me, Minister Dawood, what I bring to the BAIO is my principles, which is revolution, reconstruction, renaissance. How do I see revolution? What exactly is revolution? What is revolution to you? Well, basically, most of you don't know much about revolution other than what you heard and what you read in your history books and a cursory understanding of it from some loudmouths from the conscious community and the Black Power militant crowd. So all you basically know is that revolution means kill whitey, bring down, bang on these crackers, and all this other stuff. And you really don't know what revolution is, so you want to stay far the hell away from that as you possibly can, because by God, you don't want to be linked with that. Of course you don't. And so be that as it may, brothers and sisters, what you don't realize is that, let me open up the chat room. I'm sorry, y'all. Give me a second. Even though a lot of times when I open up the chat room, it locks me up. But anyway, what you call it? Where was we at? You look at it as basically a bunch of mindless people who got hard enough to challenge the system and want to kill somebody. But revolutions happen every day in different industries and markets. See, me, brothers and sisters, I'm not stupid, okay? I'm not one of those guys that's going to tell you to take up arms against your government just to make a point. That's stupid. And again, just in case you didn't hear me before, that's stupid, okay? When I talk about revolution, what I'm talking about is change, wholesale change in mentality and ways of doing things. Again, to me, revolution is wholesale change and wholesale change and mentality and the way in which you do things. And so therefore, to me, revolution first happens in conscious community organizations that have been doing things the same way since the 70s, the 80s, and even the 90s. Because what I'm advocating for is a shift in focus. And what I'm advocating for is a shift in priorities. And that's what I call revolution. See, when iTunes came out, that was a revolution. When the iPad and the iPhone came out, that was a revolution. When caller ID came out and digital phones came out, these things were revolution. Anything that completely changed a paradigm. When Uber came out, that Uber is becoming a revolution in the taxi industry because now people do not have to worry about the high fees and the rude dudes coming to chauffeur them around. They now have a lot more control. See, revolution, brothers and sisters, you have to understand something. Revolution's common denominator is when a people feel that they have no control over their upward mobility. And I said this before. Again, revolution is when people feel that they have no control over their upward mobility. In other words, people feel that they are born in a class, they will die in a class. And in that class, they will continue to receive the same kind of treatment, the same kind of goods and services, the same kind of living condition, all of that. And when you feel that way, and there's been generations of that. Your mother was like that. Your grandmother was like that. Your father. They all had to deal with the same conditions. At some point, Donna Blythe Muhammad teaches us that dissatisfaction brings about change, and whenever there's a climate of dissatisfaction, then the environment produces a man or a woman respecting that particular climate of dissatisfaction. And so, therefore, brothers and sisters, revolution generally starts with a charismatic voice that speaks to the dissatisfaction of men and women who cannot move upwards and are stuck in a class. And you see, when you look at, so you may ask me, well, how does that relate to an Uber or an iPhone or an iPad. The fact of the matter is this: we've been taking the same taxi for years. We was getting our music the same way for years. We was viewing movies the same way for years. And finally, someone was produced with a revolutionary idea to completely change the industry. Now, the way men and women who sing, dance, and make entertainment, the way they make money has completely changed because of digital music and digital downloading. So you cannot front. You cannot deny that that's a revolution. What Brother Minister Daoud is saying, what I advocate for, is I advocate for the keeping of the black movement. There are some of you out there, you want the black movement to die. You think that they should die, that we should all just basically think about ourselves. Some of you think that we should all just basically put money together and just do group economics. Some of you think that, what we all really need to do is just focus on health. What you need to understand is everything that you're saying is a subgroup or a faction of a subculture of the conscious community. But what I'm advocating for is the keeping of all of those groups that were just mentioned. However, what I'm advocating for is a shift of focus and a shift of priorities. And if there is not a shift of focus or priorities soon, what will end up happening, brothers and sisters, is, quite frankly, these groups and methodologies will become obsolete. So what I said a long time ago is that these groups need to shift their focus from just the collection of money and the acquiring of buildings and then the massing of more people so that you could collect money and acquire more buildings. What I've advocated a long time ago, that the focus begin to turn, that economics begin to taught right alongside the spirituality, that the science that is being taught is enables brothers and sisters and inspires them not only to get skills, but to master skills. And this is where I come in. Because if the revolution occurs amongst all the black organizations and we stop talking about Kill Whitey and we stop talking about all of the stuff that we've been talking about for the last 20 to 30 years and we begin to focus on inspiring brothers and sisters to become masters at the skills that is needed to build your own society, then we would not have to talk against anybody or rail against anybody anymore. You would not have to be underground anymore. You would not have to hide your identity anymore. Because even if you wanted to, quote-unquote, build a nation within a nation, which we in the BAIO believe is completely impossible, but let's just say you wanted to do that. Half of you talking about that do not have the necessary people in your organization to do so. So how is it going to happen? Are you going to amass a certain amount of money and just pay people who is against your ideology to build that nation? Now, you know that's not realistic. And this is why I say that within an organization's ideology, there needs to be a revolution. There needs to be a game changer. Somebody needs to put together an organization based on the original principles of all of these great men and women who came before us, but do it, shift the focus, shift the priority in a different way so that which you've been talking about for the last 30 years, you now have homegrown the men and women to do so. And this is the problem. The problem is that everybody that is talking about building a nation or building society is talking about doing it the same way that it was done back in the days, which is to put together nickels, pennies, and dimes. Do you understand that nickels, pennies, and dimes are irrelevant in 2016? Do you understand that single-dollar bills is irrelevant in 2000? Do you understand that? Do you understand that by amassing 200 to 300 single-dollar bills, that is going to get you nowhere but 5 to 6 or maybe 7 gallons of dog food? That's it. And so therefore, brothers and sisters, be that as it may, when Brother Minister Daoud talks about, my computer is threatening to lock up on me again. I ain't going to let it happen this time. I'm going to play clips because I'm going to honor my brother and I'm going to get my message across. When Brother Minister Daoud is talking about revolution, again, he is not talking about fighting. He is not talking about killing. He is not talking about maiming. He is not talking about insulting. He's not even talking about ostracizing. But when I talk about revolution, I talk about a complete shift in mentality and the conducting of business and the way organizations choose to focus on their priorities. And if we can do that, then we can go to the next step, which is Reconstruction. Reconstruction, brothers and sisters. Understand something when it comes to Reconstruction. Okay, so when you go through what's called revolution, in other words, you have changed the thinking, you have changed the mentality of the organization. You have now focused the organization on land, infrastructure, nationhood, but more importantly, you have now focused the organization on science, technology, engineering, mathematics. You're a charismatic person, because remember something, brothers and sisters, in each city that there is, the dissatisfaction in that city, therefore, produces a man or a woman that is, that is charismatic enough to speak to the issue of that particular city. That person is born with the ability to address your lack of ability to move up, your lack of ability to change your circumstances, your lack of ability to change your class. That person is able to speak into it in such fashion that nobody else can from no other city. And that person, and the reason being is that person is born out of the dissatisfaction in that city, and it is in his DNA or her DNA. And so, therefore, once this goes down and the people have been efficiently awoken, not only does that person have the ability to speak to that people, that person also has the industry, has the inspiration, has the energy to go ahead and enact the programs that needed to be enacted for that for that rising, that resurrection, that rebirth to happen. Because understand something, brothers and sisters, not from a biblical standpoint, not from a religious standpoint, but from a traditional and indigenous standpoint. We all go through a mental resurrection when we come into consciousness. Whether you want to say that you're a part of the conscious community, or whether you want to say, I'm not a part of that, like the most of you say. The reality of it is when you become awake, your awakeness is similar to somebody else's, and when there's more than one person that's awake like you, you're a part of a community, idiot. And so, therefore, the fact of the matter is this. Once this goes down in a massive scale, let's just say you get 5% of the people in your city or 10% of the people in your city. And understand, brothers and sisters, if you live in a city like like New York City, where there's 8 million people, and you get 10%, that's a huge number. Nobody, I don't think, has ever come close to that. Live in a city like New York and you get 5%, that's still a huge number, and I don't think anybody has come close to that. But either way, if you get even 1% of the people in your city to rise, to become awake, to become aware, and to want to do something, and your priorities, what you focus on as an organization, has shifted. This is where second-generation organizations have been stagnated and have not gone anywhere. People start with the resurrection and the revolution, and they stay on the resurrection and the revolution. And people do not go to the next step, which is Reconstruction. What is Reconstruction? What is Reconstruction? Reconstruction is when you now take the blighted communities that you live in, the projects, the burnt-out homes, the blighted neighborhoods, the empty lots, the corner stores that are owned by every nationality and race other than ours, all of this, and you begin now to turn your men and women who have been inspired to master skills that are nation building, you turn them again with a nuanced plan to start to reconstruct the neighborhood into the image that you and I know, that we teach on, that we talk about, that we research, transform it into high society. Now, I know that this sounds easy as I'm saying it. I know that what I'm saying to you sounds like it's pie in the sky, and I'm making it sound easy. But you know what's easy? It's easy to do it when you got qualified people. Because if you're going to work for Caucasians every day and you're building entire buildings for them, listen, brothers and sisters, I'm in the building trades. I watch people put together buildings within a month. I watch it. I'm a part of it because I have to do the security. And so, therefore, and when I say security, I don't mean putting on a damn suit and walking around with a billy club. I'm talking about wireless security, wired security, comprehensive fire security, and life safety features that are essential to you running that building without some dude coming up in there with a small firearm or AK-47 and turning you into Orlando. And so, therefore, be that as it may, brothers and sisters, why you laugh? having fun with my beautiful wife here. And so therefore, brothers and sisters, I've seen them put the buildings together. I've seen it done, and I'm a part of it. And the fact of the matter is that if you go to work for the same person you're talking about killing every day and banging on, and you do that for him, what makes you think you can't do it for yourself? And the reason being is that we have not focused on that. So here's the messed up thing about it. The messed up thing about it is traditionally the people who are reached with this kind of message are the people that don't have skills. This is true. Because the people who do have skills, 9 times out of 10, have already decided to disappear into society because they know if they speak up or they speak out, basically their income is going to be killed, cut off, or shut off. And so what happens is if you begin to homegrow men and women who come from a bad situation, who come from the vices of drugs, gangbanging, running the streets, robbing, stealing, whatever it is, and trust me, when I say people, I'm including myself in there because I've had an aspect of all of these things at some part of my life. And so therefore, when you can take those people and inspire them to turn around and master science, master technology, master engineering, and become geniuses at mathematics, do you have any idea what you will be able to do? Do you have any idea what you will be able to accomplish? And the reason why you don't have an idea is because you have not focused on Reconstruction. Reconstruction is the most pivotal part of this 3-part phase is because Reconstruction is where we should all be now. And by the way, Reconstruction is where we're all qualified to be because we've done enough revolution. Don't you think we've done enough revolution? If you don't think so, I know so. Because in any city that you go into, let me just say this and I'll close, and I got one more segment and I'm kirk out. And that is this here. I remember when I was in Jacksonville, Florida. My dad had convinced me to come down to Jacksonville, Florida. Just telling somebody this story. My dad had convinced me to come down to Jacksonville, Florida and live with him. And I remember being on the highway in Jacksonville and selling papers. And man, brothers and sisters, listen, I sold papers in many cities in my lifetime. But I'm going to tell you, when I was in Jacksonville, Florida, I met so many people that used to be in the mosque that had fell out and was in the streets. It was not funny. There was more people in the streets that said, brother, I was a part of the mosque back in the day. Oh, brother, let me get one of the papers. I was part of it. Hey, brother, I was part of that. I mean, I met like 40 to 50 people who fell out. And I'm saying to myself, what the hell's wrong with this city? How you got more people driving by me in cars wanting to buy papers that are in civilian clothing than I've seen on Sunday at the mosque? So what does that tell you? What that tells you is a lot of people have been taught. And what that tells you is a lot of people have been aware. But maybe you want another example. Like I said before, if you come to New York City, if you come to Philly, or you come to New Jersey, these 3 cities, right? And you walk the streets, and let's just say you walk the streets with me. I'm going to usually have on a suit and some kind of tie because that's my Muslim brand, right? If you walk the street with me, you know how many people are going to walk up to me? Oh, assalamu alaikum, brother. I used to sell fishes at the salon. I used to sell fish steaks and cut up fish fries, and, you know, I used to, all that kind of stuff. And quite frankly, brothers and sisters, it's going to be a lot of people you're going to run into, B. It's going to be a lot of people. And if that's true, then that means that we have been teaching for so many years, we are out of the revolution. It is time for us to take phase 2 to the Reconstruction. And let me say this before I close, brothers and sisters. You know something? They say nothing is more powerful than an idea whose time has come, but they also say that truth out of season bears no fruit. I'd like to say this. An idea and an operation out of season bears no fruit. And I'll say it again. An idea and an operation that's out of season bears no fruit. So therefore, the reality of it is this. If what was in season in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and even the early 90s was revolution, and that bore, you know, the Nation of Islam, the Nuwabians, the 5%ers, and all the other movements, lots and lots of fruit. Ask yourself a critical question. In 2016, how come those ideologies are not bearing no fruit? And is it because what those teachers said is all of a sudden wrong? Is it because what the organizations used to be about, they're not about no more? The reality of it is because you are now in a different phase. So you need a different idea and a different operation, and the new idea and the new operation is not new. It's just phase 2, and phase 2 is Reconstruction. After you have revolution, you need Reconstruction, and if you don't have Reconstruction out of revolution, all your fruit gets rotten, sour, and it begins to die. Okay, so let's run down the history. We complained about black people not getting an Oscar. We complained about black people's shows getting knocked off the air and not being funded. We complained about the hip-hop awards and how no black person wins the hip-hop awards anymore. We complain about the erosion of R&B and how the black soul experience is being washed out of R&B. Everything that we have that's artistic, we are being co-opted, we are being taken out of. So now, what happens after Reconstruction? It's very simple. The logical progression is after you reconstruct high black society, now you begin to engage in Renaissance, which means what? Which means all the singing and dancing that you did in America, you can do in your own nation. Which means all of the basketball and football playing you did in America, guess what? You can do in your own nation. Which means all the poetry, which means all of the, all of the lyrics, which means anything that you have done, if you picked up color and you did it and you felt it was good and you tried to market it and you felt that you didn't have a chance because it wasn't back, all of that stuff you can do in your own nation, because if it didn't work in America, imagine if you had a nation of millions, even billions of people behind you wanting to see your stuff succeed and prosper. And for the mere fact is that what you're doing, perpetuating the altruistic truth that this nation is built off your own people and will survive on your own people. That's what I call Renaissance. Renaissance is not a bunch of black people sitting around drinking liquor and basically burping themselves to sleep. Renaissance is not black people engaging in lewd sex and and naked, perverted, orgies and things like that, which is what you saw in other Renaissances. Renaissance, brothers and sisters, is when your art, your culture, and everything about entertainment looks like you and is nationalistically dedicated towards you and I as a people, bringing black pride and nationalistic pride to keep the nation going, keep it vibrant, and keep it strong. You and I as a people, we have to start looking at that, because that's the next stage. So here you have the 3 circles: revolution, Reconstruction, Renaissance. Which that leads me to Dev, and then I'm going to bring Harlequin. So me and him was having this talk one day, and this is one of the things he was telling me. He said, brother, he said, whatever you do, you better trademark it. I said, why is that? He said, brother, don't you understand that people lie in wait to hear you do something that's brilliant, trademark it, and then try to sell it back to you? I said, what do you mean? Is that true? He said, hell yeah, that's true. He said, so anything that you do, you better trademark. He said, because if you don't trademark it, one of these trolls is going to catch you. See, this, brothers and sisters, this is the kind of wisdom that you get from somebody that has been around the block and is well vested in his craft and knows certain things. But this is also the kind of wisdom that you get from somebody that cares enough to give it to you. And that, to me, is what that dude means the most to me, is that, again, a person that does not have to care takes out the time to care. So if there's anything I would say to you today, brothers and sisters, to inspire you by this particular show, and that is this here. No matter where you get in life, no matter what you do in life, understand that there's always another life that you could touch. And understand that if you do not use your gift, you do not use your prosperity, you do not use your blessing and all the trappings that you have to at least inspire one person positively, then I don't really think that you have lived. Our grandmothers, our mothers, they come, they give us life, they bestow upon us so many jewels. But if we don't take those jewels and inspire somebody else, we have not lived. Okay, so I think I'm very happy with what I've done, and I am going to bring in my good brother. Hopefully he's locked on with me. Brother, are you there?
Hey, I'm here. I apologize for the background noise, but I'm in the bus right now.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good.
You can hear me?
How's it going? Yes, sir, I can hear you, bro. Loud and clear.
Okay. Yeah, it's going good. Actually, I wanted to touch on something about the show and then speak on Dev afterwards.
Come on with it.
You ever heard that term they use in the South, shit or get off the pot? I think that's what the cultural conscious community in America is doing right now. They have to, either shit or get off the pot. It's like we've got enough teaching, enough studying, enough. I mean, people can recite, the Metu frontwards and backwards. At some point, you have to use that knowledge to build something. And you've been making this point for quite some time now.
Yes, sir.
It's like you've been banging home that point for forever. I don't know. The only way a person can't understand it is if they don't want to understand it.
Right.
You know?